consciousness is the one thing you can never step outside of. It's what red looks like, what a headache feels like after a long day. The simple fact that you're having any experience at all. But for most scientific history, people kind of avoided it. It was treated like an awkward problem, something private and fuzzy that no machine could measure, like a ghost hiding in the brain. So we told ourselves an easier story. Consciousness must just happen when intelligence gets complicated enough. Enough neurons firing, enough language, enough processing power. Boom, awareness appears. But what if that's the wrong way to think of? What if consciousness isn't about how well something performs? In my book, Integrated Information Theory, the mathematical signature of consciousness in the age of AI, I take seriously a bold idea. Consciousness isn't some poetic extra added to physics. It might actually be something with a structure, something we can describe, limit, and maybe even measure. Not a fog, but a pattern. To deal with the famous heart problem of consciousness, we have to change focus. Less about behavior, more about internal structure. Integrated Information Theory, IIT, starts with a simple claim. Consciousness is about how much a system forms one unified whole that cannot be broken into independent parts. The key idea is irreducible. Think about a library. It might hold a massive amount of information, but each book is separate. Take one away, the others don't change. It's just a pile of parts. In the sense IIT cares about, its integration is basically zero. Now, think about your experience right now. Sounds, body sensations, the meaning of these words, they don't come to you as separate files. They show up as one single scene. Your awareness isn't a stack of pieces. It's a whole. If you try to break it apart, you wouldn't have the same experience anymore. IIT gives this unity a symbol called phi. Phi doesn't measure intelligence, memory, or problem solving. It measures how much a system's parts affect each other in a tight, closed loop. How much the system's current state shapes its own past and future states from the inside. Hi-Fi means everything is deeply connected, each part influencing the others. The book goes into the math behind this, trying to explain why some arrangements of matter are lit up with experience while others, even very busy ones, are dark inside. This leads to some surprising conclusions. Take the cerebellum, the tightly folded structure at the back of your brain, as an example. It has more neurons than the cortex, the part linked to thought and perception. But people can lose large parts of the cerebellum and still be fully conscious. Their coordination gets worse, sure, but their inner experience is still there. From IIT's view, that's because of a structure. The cerebellum is built in many repeating modules that work mostly in a feed-forward way. It processes a lot, but its parts don't deeply integrate, so its phi is probably low. It's powerful in function, but not central to experience. Now, bring in AI. We are building systems that write essays, diagnose diseases, and compose music. Their performance can match or beat ours. It's very tempting to think that means they must feel something. But IIT throws cold water on that. If these systems are made of separate modules that just pass information forward without forming a tightly interwoven whole, their phi could be near zero. In that case, they might be incredibly capable but empty inside, basically digital zombies. At the same time, the theory says consciousness isn't just for human brains. Any system, biological or artificial, that has the right kind of integrated internal structure could have some degree of experience. Consciousness becomes less about the species and more about how matter is organized. And once you think you might be able to measure consciousness, things get seriously fast. The question isn't just what is consciousness, but what do we owe to something that is conscious? If file-like measures can help detect hidden awareness in patients who can't move or speak, that's already medically important. But as we build more complex machines, the stakes get even bigger. Could we create systems that can suffer? If a machine's internal structure crosses a certain level of integration, does it deserve moral consideration? These aren't secret religious questions. They're engineering questions with ethical consequences. As technology lets us shape which systems have experience, we are not just building tools, we are shaping where consciousness exists in the universe. My book isn't claiming to have the final answer. IIT might be incomplete or partly wrong, but it's a serious attempt to treat consciousness as something science can study and ethics must care about. As the line between humans and machines gets blurrier, ignoring consciousness isn't really an option. So dive into the arguments, question them, push back, because the future of intelligence in brains or in silicon depends on how seriously we take the idea that inside some physical systems, something is actually happening. Let's explore carefully and curiously how the universe ends up feeling like something from the inside. Get your copy. My book is available online and at the libraries. Also registered at the Library of Congress.